We have a lot of news to talk about as pitchers and catchers ramp up. And we're also talking best pitcher values and underdog best ball drafts here on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We're sponsored by Fantrax, the most customizable free commissioner service in fantasy sports, and Underdog Fantasy, home of the biggest best ball contests in the industry. Todd, it seems like the news, well, as you'd expect, with pitchers and catchers reporting, coming in hot. So we got quite a bit to touch on. As I mentioned, too, our Underdog segment, best pitching values on the board. So we'll, I had to pick and choose which ones I really liked, but I got 5 good ones. And looking forward to talking for about an hour or so with you. How are you today, Todd, on this Friday afternoon?
Doing well, my friend. We had an entire Underdog podcast yesterday. I filled in for Jeff, who was in Vegas representing us at the FSGA. Had Chris from At Baseball with a 3 instead of E. So we'll do our podcast, but I learned some things from Chris yesterday. So anyway, if you play Underdog, go back and listen to that.
Yeah, we'll have our usual Underdog segment, but you guys did pretty much a whole show on kind of the was it more so strategy? And
it was strategy, some name up, but it was strategy. Chris has been doing this for years, and has developed a spreadsheet. And it was fun banter. I learned some things, had some other strategy approaches kind of, I don't know, justified, as when it confirmed, yes, you're doing the right thing. No, you should do this. So it was fun.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to talking a little more best ball with you a little later in the show. And we have, as I mentioned, a lot of news. I know, everybody's got spring fever, although here in Wisconsin, there was another blizzard yesterday. So still not really spring here in Wisconsin.
We got low high 50s and rain, so that's baseball weather in New England.
Absolutely,
that's opening. If we have high 50s and rain on opening day, it's considered beautiful.
Well, I'll tell you, another Wisconsinite who's not too thrilled right now is Corbin Burns.
Yeah.
I don't think he's actually born and raised in Wisconsin. Neither am I. I'm an Ohio guy, but he was vocal after losing that arbitration case. Really a worst case scenario for the Brewers and their fans to have this business relationship seemingly, irreparably damaged. It's tough to see if you're a Brewers fan, and I don't really think this has a ton of impact on fantasy, but next year, I think we can assume Burns is pitching for a new team.
You say irreparable damage, if nothing like we'll extend you for this amount of money to repair said damage. But I think the takeaway is that Milwaukee doesn't want to go down that road, so they don't mind so much that this is what occurred. I don't know. I tend not to get caught up in these sort of things. I think you're right. Nothing's going to change this year. The narrative that he pitches with anger, I don't know. Could he pitch any better? I don't think so. So we'll just have to see what happens. I suppose if you're in an NL only league, you'd be a little bit concerned about a trade. But other than that, I don't think it matters much.
It's just amazing to me to hear them apparently putting the blame on missing the playoffs on Corbin Burns. It's just insane. They wouldn't have even been in the mix without him. So, yeah, I get that you're trying to win a case and you put an argument against a player on there, but it's it just seems a little short-sighted. I saw the same with Ryan Helsley of the Cardinals, and that process probably needs to change because it just feels like there's nothing good coming out of arbitration for the player or the team, really. I guess the team saves, a couple $1,000.
The mere fact that we knew what happened in the arbitration hearing, I don't think that's good. No. But of course, that could have been leaked from Burns' side. Who knows? But to me, it's none of our business what went on during the meetings. But I don't know.
Well, Burns publicly disclosed some of the happenings and
Right.
not too thrilled about it. Some news this morning. We'll get to some news like from throughout the week, but the news that caught my eye this very morning was Lance McCullers dealing with soreness after Tuesday's bullpen session, and manager Dusty Baker said, quote, "It's the same thing." So I assume that's the same forearm he's referencing. And so this always comes with Lance McCullers, but I think anybody who's hurt right now, and I don't want to draft somebody who's hurt already, so I lowered McCullers, and I think he's just barely hanging on inside my top 300 for things like Underdog Best Ball. I think you just cross him off your list. Too scary to have this lingering still at this point.
Yeah, I've got him for 23 starts right now. I mean, 20, not 22, not 24, 23. You got to put some number down, right? I got him for 23 starts. I don't know if I changed it. Does that have enough baked in? I think I need to hear a little more. Is it just, is he fine for the next bullpen session, et cetera? Does he start McCullers pitching in the spring games? So in early drafts, I do think you need to temper one's enthusiasm from coming back. You're right. I'm not touching him in best ball. I'm probably not touching him in draft and hold either.
Yeah, that's one where I just can't see taking that chance in a draft like that. This may actually, though, put Hunter Brown more so into the mix to be a kind of traditional mixed league end game pickup.
Absolutely.
I mean, Hunter Brown, they just signed him to extension too, didn't they?
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive arm there. And if McCullers has to sit, he could very well join the rotation right from the jump. Over in Queens, I guess they're not in Queens. They're in Stillwater or something. Jacob deGrom delayed a little due to left side tightness. Now they're saying he could throw Sunday or Monday, and the implication was that, well, it was just the cold weather and yada yada. You putting any stock into this? Does this kind of raise an eyebrow for you with deGrom?
I was already low as far as starts. I mean, if this guy were to cough, it would make Twitter. I mean, that's So whether this is an exaggeration or not, I don't know. But I only have him for 120 innings anyway. I'm not budging him off of that, at least not yet. So we'll see. I mean, he's being FOMO'd. He's being pushed up just because he's Jacob deGrom. But I think I can win without Jacob deGrom.
Well put. I have him 29th right now, but I think I need to bump him outside the top 2 rounds in 15-teamers. Just a little bit, but I'm with you. Like, there's so much name value. We see him when he's on the mound. He's incredible. But to take a pick like that, and we've talked, there's been discussion of, come main events, he'll be a first-rounder easily. I don't think that's how you go about trying to win. I think that's just swinging for the fences when you don't have to with your first pick.
And it's been proven that winning an overall competition of that nature is not done by the first round home runs. It's done by the first 5 round safety and then having solid players outperform their expectations later on. So I don't know. I mean, when I see deGrom being drafted, I smile because that pushes Zach Wheeler, that pushes Aaron Nola down to me.
Yep, and I get it. When you're playing for an overall contest, you kind of have that urge deep down to swing for the fences. But yeah, it's just first 5 rounds, I'm looking to hit doubles and get on base.
Yep.
As a metaphor that's old and kind of exhausted at this point. But still, I'm just inevitably, I think we'll see deGrom go in the first in some of those leagues, and it leaves me scratching my head because, yeah, he's got that league-winning upside, but we haven't seen it over a full season in quite a while. Jacob deGrom, we talked about. Frankie Montas, slated for shoulder surgery February 21st, likely to miss most of the season. Tough blow for the Yanks, and I saw some people on Yankees Twitter irked at the Oakland A's for sending them damaged goods, I guess. But yeah, the Yankees will have to figure this out. And I think you mentioned on Twitter that you're going to have to basically just have a dead spot on some of those best ball rosters because you take the chance on Montas?
At least one, maybe twice. So whatever, it is what it is. It got to the point where I want to differentiate. Hey, who knows? But it's one roster. From a personal standpoint, I'm an anti-narrative guy, and the narrative about can't pitching in New York. You know what? Maybe it's true, but I don't believe it. I need to see it. So I was hoping that he crushed. I was hoping that because he's a good pitcher. So I was hoping that he pitched really well. I pitched. Where did I pick him up? I may have picked him up in our Arizona Fall League draft and hold. I don't recall. I don't have as many teams as I normally do. It may have been in a mock. I don't remember. But I did pick up Montas just for that very reason that the market is so sour, and I just can't believe he's that bad. So to me, that a Red Sox fan, I don't want him to do well, but that's not my job to be a Red Sox fan. It's to be a fantasy analyst, and if they could pay me to be a Red Sox fan, that would be cool. But anyway, they're not. As a fantasy analyst, I wanted to see him bounce back because I don't believe in that Ed Whitson type of narrative just because of half of a year.
You make good points, but we knew that the shoulder was a problem before the latest news that he needed surgery. So it just kind of ties back into McCullers and DeGrom, and that I don't want to draft a guy who's already got some health issues at this point. I'm going to run into a ton of injuries throughout the year anyway. Especially a pitcher,
and especially if you can't put him on a DL or replace him in a fab or waiver pickup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see a lot of people, and I'm not like subtweeting Justin Mason here or anything, but people who take that quote unquote value on injured arms, and then they just injury optimism is not your friend type of thing, and people just end up cutting bait with a high pick, or maybe even worse, just keeping them stashed and then cutting bait. So
in a league where you can cut bait. All right, I'll take. TGFBI is coming up. I don't think that's a bad idea. Well, Montas is out for so long, but to me, is there another guy that's sort of supposed to come back? I don't know if Liam Hendricks is the guy, but I think it's okay if you have reserves to take a chance of that nature because you can cut bait. But when it's draft and hold and when it's best ball, you can't, and that's just a hole. We'll talk underdog. There's only 20 roster spots, so you're down 5% of your roster if you lose a player. And when you're gonna lose players, why go into it knowing you're 95%?
Yeah, general rule, I will not take a pitcher who's already hurt because I just don't assume that things are going to go smoothly from there necessarily. You just mentioned underdog, and a real quick note. The fantasy baseball season is underway, and there's no better place to play than Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy baseball. Right now, Underdog has MLB Best Ball tournaments live, including the Dinger, which has $500,000 in total prizes. In Best Ball, all you do is join a contest, draft your team, and that's it. There are no waivers, no trades, and no in-season management. Draft 20 rounds of players and get the best cumulative scores in your starting lineup. 3 pitchers, 3 infielders, 3 outfielders, and 1 flex. Each week of the regular season. Getting started is simple. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with promo code RWMLB. And not only will Underdog double your initial deposit up to $100, but you'll also get 6 months of our RotoWire subscription for free. Again, that's Underdog Fantasy, promo code RWMLB. Draft your 100,000 Dinger team today. Todd, back to some news. I was surprised to see that Reds manager David Bell essentially confirmed that Alexis Diaz, little brother of Edwin Diaz, will be the closer. From C. Trent Rosecrans of The Athletic, the quote was from David Bell, quote, "I guess the only reason I'm hesitant to say that, and I'm not, he's going into the season as our closer. There are times where it's an important game and he's fully available. We might use him earlier than that." So he's basically alluding to his past late inning usage where, he may need to put out a fire at some point. But this is really the first time I can remember in David Bell's tenure with the Reds that he's really put his stamp, especially this early, on a guy as his closer.
I think there's a good reason for that. Who's his competition? Who's his competition? Yeah. It's usually been a competition. So if there was somebody who was close
Lucas
enough,
Sims, but
again, okay. Thanks for making my point. It's who's his competition? Yeah. No one's close. Now, when you're saying he may come in earlier, I'm reading that as not like 7th and 8th. I'm reading that as a 4 or 5 or 6 out save. That could be. That's how I'm reading it. So if I'm, not if I am, if I have to, again, it's not 29, it's not 31, it's 30 saves for Alexis Diaz, saying completely tongue implanted in cheek. But that's kind of where I'm at, in that if your top closers, you're expecting 35 to 40, I'm kind of in the 25 to 30 range with Diaz, with a comfort level, a pretty high comfort level. If I'm not, and I'm not investing in the top tier closers, I'm kind of hoping to get Diaz in the, I don't know what round I have to take a look at ADPs, but with this news, he could pop up a bit. He could be that guy. Last year was Scott Barlow, that you could get him in the 13th and 14th early, and you may need to get him in the 9th or 10th. He may be that guy that's the bridge between the really good guys and then the hold your nose guys. He could be in that middle.
Yeah, I could see him getting even pricier than that in late drafts, especially if he's, makes it through spring training unscathed and is pitching well. I could see that price getting up there. Let me just throw one by. I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but would you rather have Alexis Diaz behind that kind of top group, top like 10 or 11 closers, or would you rather have a guy like Andres Munoz?
Oh man, I knew you were going to go there, because that's in my head. That's what I was thinking.
It's kind of the line, isn't
it? The idea strategically is, if you could get Munoz and Sewald, I think that's better than Diaz by himself. So if I'm near a wheel and I think I can double tap Munoz and Diaz, I think I would probably Munoz and Paul Sewald. I think I would probably do it. If I'm in an auction draft, and I will be, for Tout Wars, and I just want to pay for a guy that's going to get me, he could be a guy I target in Tout Wars, and I'll Tout Wars in a few weeks. So I'm trying to, Munoz is a good example. I'm trying to think of another pitcher that could be in that same range. Who's that?
Yohan Duran.
Duran. Yeah. Sean Cassidy. Anyway, I'm dating myself just a little bit. Don't make me sing it. But yeah, 70s pop. Not Keith Cassidy's, David Cassidy's brother, I believe. Anyway, a Hardy boy, if I'm not mistaken.
Nice. Well, it is cool to see that Alexis got
the
stamp. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see Alexis get the stamp. I do expect that cost to rise. And you're right, there's not a lot behind him, but I know Lucas Sims seems to be healthy in camp, so that's good. And we will not be seeing TJ Antone.
No, which is probably saving you from yourself a little bit, huh?
Yeah. I was a big Antone guy when he first came on the scene.
I mean, the Reds, I don't want to, overstate matters, but they've got a couple good pitchers, and they have professional. They've got major league batters and all. They're going to sneak out some wins. So Diaz is going to get some chances to get some saves. They're not. I mean, maybe you wish they did more, but they do have, players that you've heard of batting in their batting order.
A few of them. But yeah,
isn't that backhanded compliment? You've heard of them. Yeah, I don't know. But
there are some teams where you haven't even, like the A's. I'm sure I'll be watching some A's games.
Will Myers, Jake Fraley. Sure wish they had a better shortstop. You never know how it's going to work out. But they have some guys that have produced before, and in that division, the Reds will get 70 wins, and that usually means 35 are saved or get saves. So does Diaz get 30 of those 35? That seems reasonable.
Yeah, even the worst teams out there provide some save chances, and Yeah, David Bell making clear that Diaz will be the guy to start the season. So at least we have that little bit of clarity, and definitely expect that to affect his acquisition cost. Masataka Yoshida, we talked a little bit about the past couple weeks. He's expected to bat leadoff for the Red Sox. Just wanted to throw that out there. And then Alex Kirilloff for the Minnesota Twins. No setbacks, no concern, according to President of Baseball Operations Derek Falvey. Falvey added that our strength guys said the wrist is probably in as good a spot as they've seen coming into camp. Maybe a little coach speak there, but it is good to hear that after all these wrist problems Alex Kirilloff has had, that maybe he's close to full strength finally. Is he somebody you're interested in drafting, perhaps?
A little bit. Now, there's, I don't know, I'll call it a log jam. Actually, there's a bit of a log jam in the Minnesota corners situation there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the expectation at one point was Max Kepler would be traded. That has not happened. But I still think Kirilloff can carve out some playing time, especially if Jose Miranda can show he can handle the hot corner defensively and not have to play first base. Kirilloff could play can get back to first base. And it's just does the team want Michael Taylor to be a starter, or are they happy to have him as a backup, assuming Buxton doesn't get hurt? So that's why Kepler could have been traded, was they do have a Michael Taylor to step in and play some defense. So, and designated hitters there, Trevor Larnach, who's to say how he performs? Because he's kind of in the same boat as Kirilloff, similar prospects coming up at the same time. And
total unknown.
Yeah, not quite like producing.
Yeah.
So if Kirilloff hits, they will find a spot for him. Now, am I chasing him? Again, I want to, I say again, I haven't said it today, we say it every week. When I answer a question of this nature, I want to pretend it's the only team I'm drafting. And I do not think I would take a chance. If I'm doing multiple teams, which we do, would I want him somewhere, Kirilloff? Yeah, I would.
I've noticed the corner gets a little hairy later in the draft, and could maybe consider plugging Kirilloff in there, but I'd rather have like an Eduardo Escobar, somebody who's a little bit more proven, even if we've seen a little downside. Yeah, I'd like Kirilloff as a prospect.
He's only eligible to start the year in outfield.
Oh,
now it's 18 games. Some leagues are changing. Tout Wars, it's 15. So in Tout Wars, he's eligible at the corner.
Yeah.
So
good call that you won't be able to put him there.
Learn my rules. So right. So you have to, but if you get another first base outfield type, you can maneuver players around, but it shouldn't take long, 5 or 10 games to get first base eligibility. But I think there is enough prospect pedigree, and he's still young enough that I think I would like part of a Kirilloff breakthrough season.
Yeah, especially the outfield eligibility. Now that I think about it, actually
doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt, because putting him as the fifth outfielder for the time being, mixing and matching guys, kind of playing the matchups, you could extract some value there. And they brought in Kyle Farmer, so I kind of expect him to play a lot. So maybe that pushes Miranda over to first.
Yeah, that's the
on
thing.
Occasion, and so definitely not assured of anything, even though the reports on the wrist are encouraging for Alex Kirilloff. Randall Grichuk, not so encouraging. Hernia surgery, he's likely out for opening day. This is one where maybe you don't cross him off entirely, but he's barely hanging on in the top 300, and he was kind of fringe for mixed drafts to begin with, and now with him likely to miss the start of the season, maybe Jonathan Daza gets in there in center field. But now that he's hurt, it doesn't affect position players as much, like the early camp injuries. But I will probably just pass and take a healthy option instead of Grichuk.
Yeah, we'll talk a little best ball, but Grichuk is the guy I like in the underdog format because he's going to have some games at Colorado. He's not one of your top 3 outfielders, but those weeks at Colorado, he could spike and jump in. Well, he's now off the list, like you said. Even though he's a position, well, you know what? Is he off the list because it's an appendectomy, right? Or a sports hernia. I'm sorry, so he should be okay. But yeah, you're right. And does this open up some? Does this give you more of a chance to take a shot on Nolan Jones? Maybe in an NL only. Maybe he picks up more playing time, but Jones won't play center. But by moving Daza to center, it could open up some spots for Nolan Jones.
Yeah, and I don't know if Zach Veen's particularly close. I guess he was at AA last year. Could maybe see him late in the year, but
it's the Rockies.
Yeah, that's a good point. Never trust the Rockies to do the right thing by their prospects. Nestor Cortez, Todd pulled out of the WBC due to a hamstring issue, but he is expected to be ready for opening day. I was looking into Nestor, and everything went so right last year, but I almost thought that he'd be going a little bit higher. Now this hamstring issue may maybe he's going about where he belongs. I just said that I don't want to draft a injured pitcher, but this is a hamstring, and again, he's expected to be ready for opening day. So this is the one where I'm going to maybe buck that rule and say it's not an arm injury, it's not an oblique. He's out of the World Baseball Classic, but maybe this is a little overblown. Maybe I'll take this little discount on Cortez now that it's what I expect to be a little bit of discount in drafts to come.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And, our drafts, labor and Tout Wars, we have a little time. I know we're doing other drafts in between. I think I got Cortez for the first time in a underdog draft last night just because I hadn't had him yet. And let's get a little diversity. I didn't know about this injury. I don't know that it would have mattered. And I'm not sure if the news was out there, and that's why he fell to me. I don't know. I'm with you as far as he was a bit lucky last year, but he throws innings. And to me, in a lot of formats, the innings are as important as the results. Mm-hmm. And when he's pitching well, I'm looking at the numbers now. He had some 5-inning stints, some 4-inning stints, but he had some 6 and 7 as well. So I think that does matter.
Recently, we were talking about how to find your kind of David Peralta for this year, and who would be that kind of late outfielder, kind of like the Cole Calhouns. You were synonymous with Cole Calhoun for a while. But actually, the David Peralta found a landing spot, and I think this is kind of a sneaky move by the Dodgers, grabbing David Peralta. We had, Trace Thompson in center for a while. James Outman was talked about. But I think adding a guy like Peralta should help big time against righties. And is he back on the draft radar now? David Peralta?
I didn't give him the full, 75% playing time that he'd actually get 85% because he had to get some some left-handers back in his, I don't want to call them salad days, but when he was more productive, but I do think he is now in the draft championship draft and hold, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s range. Mm-hmm. I think he is in that point because you did mention, some of the other names, and I don't know. I mean, Jason Hayward, Bradley Zimmer. There are some other options, and you mentioned Outman, who a lot of people are very high on. Miguel Rojas can play some outfield as well. He's going to be like a super utility, but so I'm not. Peralta has not become my go-to safe outfielder when I'm taking a chance on a more risky guy. I'm not even sure who that is right now, but he's definitely, you gotta remember the name. I think he's in play as a reserve.
I would love to have him in like a labor NL.
Yep.
Of course.
Yep.
He's definitely back in that mix. And speaking of Dodgers outfielders, do you see Mookie Betts put on like 8 pounds?
5 to 8 pounds of muscle.
The Dodgers set him to drive lines. So
right.
No days off for Mr. Mookie.
Yeah. I don't know if it's hurt his bowling game at all, though.
Maybe helped. He's got some additional power in those shoulders at this point. They also, by the way, the Dodgers did pick up Alex Reyes, too. I thought that was kind of interesting, though he won't be available for quite some time.
Yeah.
coming off shoulder surgery. If you had to bet, and I know you're not a betting man, Todd. No, not at all. But if you had to bet on who leads the Dodgers in
Oh,
saves right now, who would you pick? And I'm
I
not going to
just
hold you to it. And
no, I mean, I just readjusted my numbers because they looked ugly, and sometimes. Well, I'm leaving this here until I'm sure they're not going to acquire anybody, and there's no one out there left to acquire. Not sure they can still make a trade. The Dodgers. I got Daniel Hudson a little bit ahead of Evan Phillips, and I don't. I just it's hard for me to believe that either one of these guys are going to be the Dodgers closer. It's the Dodgers. They're going to get somebody better. Whether they make a trade for someone, I don't know, David Bednar, who knows, remains to be seen. But I just can't imagine that's who. I mean, they didn't trust Kenley Jansen to close for them when they were, competing for the World Series when Jansen was leading the league in saves. I see somebody coming in.
I drafted Brusdar Graterol in that first pitch Arizona Speakers League, but I'm going to pivot now to Daniel Hudson. Some encouraging news on his knee and ankle. He's throwing bullpen sessions, or at least scheduled to today.
Yeah.
He was pitching really well before that ACL tear last year, and
Yep.
grabbed 5 saves in 25 appearances, 2.2,
Yep.
2 ERA, 0.90 WHIP. So yeah, I think as good as Evan Phillips is, I think Daniel Hudson is now very much on my late flyer dart range, and a dart I would like to throw, frankly. Real quick, also in LA, but in Anaheim, they mentioned that their 6th starter is going to be a swingman now, so no more 6-man rotation. When the schedule's heavy, they'll may slide in there the swingman here or there. But does this news that they're kind of going back to the 5-man rotation, does that boost Angels starters for you?
So for years, I mean, a couple of years, I would just pencil in 26 for Ohtani for starts. I got 28 this year. So does it matter? I think it matters a little bit, but there's still some injuries. There's still some health risks in that rotation. So I don't know.
So you don't really bump up the starts.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm projected for way too many starts right now. I got to try to pare that down. Whether I take some stuff away from Tucker Davidson and Jaime Barria. Yeah, I got plenty of wiggle room to kind of make it more realistic. But yeah, I mean, Tyler Anderson and Sandoval, Reed Detmers. None of these are 32 start guys for me, but they're 26, 27, 28. And it's only Ohtani that matters, I think. But I'm not, as far as where I would draft him, I'm not drafting him as a pitcher really anyway. So even that's not going to matter.
I hear you. Yeah, I maybe give a little bit more consideration now to like the Tyler Andersons, Sandoval. But yeah, I think with the injury risk that you mentioned, I think you just kind of leave that missed time baked in for these guys.
I mean, I'll be honest, and I wrote a little about this week. These are the guys that are streamers. And conventional valuation, you mentioned Anderson and Sandoval. I think you could put Reed Detmers there. Conventional valuation isn't really proper for guys that you consider to be streaming, because conventional valuation includes the starts that you're going to have on your bench. So if you're going to cut, if you're giving them 2 extra starts, but only one of them is going to matter, then I'm kind of it's more of finesse drafting for these guys already. I'm not following my numerical rankings based on projected earnings, because I'm not starting Tyler Anderson every week. So, I actually wrote about how you can make your arithmetic adjustment in the latest Z files if you want to get that down in the weeds, how you can actually figure out where you can rank them according to the replacement players that are going to be in their lineup spot when they're not healthy, or not so much healthy, but when they're not active. So to me, it's more of a touch and feel. Sandoval, maybe not, because I think he's as close to what they have other than Ohtani as someone who is going to be in your lineup most of the time.
Yeah, I hear that. Just wanted to pass along another bit of news from this morning. Clayton Kershaw announced that he will not participate in the World Baseball Classic. So we were kind of waiting to hear that you had mentioned that there were challenges getting cleared to play in the WBC, although he said there were no health concerns. So whatever those challenges were, they have gotten in the way of Kershaw pitching in the WBC, but according to him, he's all good. So he should be fine to keep ramping up. And then elsewhere this week, I saw that Aaron Judge's first workout of the spring was at first base. Kind of notable. I don't know how much he's going to play there exactly, but with them starting that work there so soon in the spring camp, I kind of think we may see it. Do you expect to see Aaron Judge at first base at all? Or is that just him getting some work in?
I did not see that. I can't. I mean, he's too good of an outfielder, and B, what's Anthony Rizzo going to do? Is he going to Is he move? He played like a game at second. Well, he played an at bat at second base to prevent a bunt with his glove on backwards. But other than that, remember that when in some one game league in some leagues he gained second base eligibility because one at bat he played second base and had to wear his glove backwards in order. It was kind of silly. But anyway, or he had to wear somebody else's fielder's glove backwards because you couldn't use your first baseman's mitt at second base, and that's why he was a second baseman because he wasn't allowed to wear the first baseman's mitt. Anyway, people don't care about that unless you're in a retro league. But no, I don't know. I haven't read that story, but I don't. I'm not going to read anything into that.
Yeah, I know. The one thing that did cross my mind, like we have certain Carlos Stanton as the DH on our depth chart, as you would expect. I think Stanton has made the point that he wants to play more outfield in 2023 in spurts, is what he said. So maybe, that pushes Rizzo to first and Rizzo to DH and Judge to first. But they also have LeMahieu and Oswaldo Cabrera.
All right.
LeMahieu's going to have to get in, and Donaldson too. So I don't know if Donaldson's really going to play a ton, but I think mostly I would not expect Aaron Judge to get first base eligibility early on.
Yeah. And don't forget Willie Calhoun on an NRI.
Ooh, they got Willie Calhoun. Huh?
At least I have him on my grid. I think that probably means he had a non-roster invitee.
Yeah, he was probably still drafted him 5 years ago, but not anymore. Do wish the best for Willie Calhoun. Hated that. Remember when he got blasted in the face in spring training?
Right. He was one of those guys that looked really good at the AFL.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Was that several years ago? You mean, right?
Oh yeah. No.
Sure. He wasn't getting in work this past year.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got a few other things to touch on and our underdog segment coming up. But first, we'll pause briefly for a quick word from our Blue Wire sponsors. All right, we are back on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Clay Link here with FSWA Hall of Famer Todd Zola. Always great to be on with a legend like yourself, Todd. Before we started the show today, you mentioned Franmil Reyes to Kansas City on an NRI deal. I was kind of wondering if, he might be able to make more money playing overseas at this point. Maybe
that's a good call.
He goes over there, but he decided to stay stateside and take the minor league deal with the non-roster invite from Kansas City. Did you put in a projection for him, or are you just kind of in wait-and-see mode on Franmil?
Well, I want to get him in there. I didn't give him a full-time projection. I did give him 40% of the playing time a designated hitter. That's tough there because we've got MJ Melendez is going to float through some DH. Salvador Perez is going to float through some DH. And you'd like to think that finally Kyle Isbell and Edward Olivares get some playing time for the Royals. And they've already come out and said that Hunter Dozier is their third baseman. So they feel most comfortable at third base. So if Reyes, tears the cover off the ball in spring training, will they find a spot for him? Yeah, sure. I'm not taking him anywhere. I mean, a 42nd round of a draft championship, sure, throw him in there. But I've seen enough to know that it's a lot of wishful thinking with Reyes.
Yeah, and I was there last year. Even I have to admit, and what was his ADP last year? Like 120 or something.
Was it that high? I
Feels like
maybe
he was going way higher. Like I mean, he was going inside the top 200 last year. I'm pretty sure, and now he's just completely out of the mix. Goes to show how you know players can fall pretty quickly in this game. It's a tough
especially when
game.
you don't hit the ball very much.
Yeah. So we saw flashes and easy to fall in love with the power. I hope Oscar Gonzalez of Cleveland doesn't go that route this year. A lot of swing and miss for him, but hoping he pans out a little better than Franmil. Well, now we will transition into our Underdog Best Ball segments of the week. I've been having a ton of fun playing with Underdog Best Ball. Definitely be sure to use the promo code RWMLB, and Underdog will not only double your initial deposit, but you also get 6 free months of RotoWire for free. Again, RWMLB. Today's topic for our Underdog Best Ball segment is best pitcher values. Todd, I know you kind of hate the term values just generally, but guys we're ending up with, guys that we find as really nice values in the drafts on Underdog that we're doing. Who do you got at your number one spot here?
We can go throughout the course of the draft. So I'm actually going to start a little bit high in that if I end up with Kevin Gausman as one of my first couple of pitchers, I'm not complaining. Mm-hmm. And that goes along with my just general thinking about Gausman in general. You talked about him a little bit earlier. There was a note that he's adjusting his delivery to get rid of a toe tap. That
tweaking his mechanics just a little bit.
Yeah, because he was actually, his delivery was actually sent around in video as, we're going to call this a balk this year because he doesn't come to a complete stop. Now it's got nothing to do with his 361 or whatever it was BABIP. It's an interesting note on Gausman. Watch him in the spring to make sure he's not, totally thrown off by having to slightly adjust his delivery. But the point being, I think he's being misranked just because he was just so wholly unlucky last year that he's just really good. And so if I happen to miss out on a top starter, I'll take me in a Kevin Gausman is one of my top two pitchers.
Clay Link and Todd Zola talking the best pitcher values on the board in Underdog Best Ball. Todd's first choice was Kevin Gausman, and my first choice was Kevin Gausman. But since you said that, I changed it to a guy who's going pretty close to him, a little bit ahead of Gausman in the Underdog drafts I've done, but Luis Castillo. So I've changed my number one to Luis Castillo. He was in that mix for me too, but I still think people, weigh the Cincinnati years a little bit too heavily. He had so much working against him. He was fighting uphill throughout that time. Didn't have a real shortstop ability at any point in Cincinnati. And I feel like people are still dinging him a little bit too much. We saw after he got out of Great American Small Park and went to, what is it, T-Mobile Park?
Yep.
What it is in Seattle?
Yep.
I mean, he was a full-blown ace. So I think people are still kind of valuing him as if he's the Cincinnati Luis Castillo, and he's in such a better spot now with the team context.
No, I agree. I don't happen to be getting him, which is why I agree with the pick just because thinking through the drafts. But a guy in that, the second guy, we're going to give you folks, we'll give you some lower level guys, don't worry. But because pitching is so important to Underdog, I think we do need to hit a couple of these top guys. Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler to me is a little bit underdrafted. He innings and the ability to get a quality start are huge in Underdog, and he has those. So I understand why a couple of these other guys are a little lower. I don't actually understand why Wheeler is as low as he is. So he's another guy that if I get Gausman and Wheeler, I don't know if have you done a draft from the 12 hole yet?
I did. Yeah. I took Trey Turner and Corbin Burns, maybe.
See, I actually took Cole and Burns, double tap the pitching. Nice. And I thought if the public knew I would be canceled. It turns out that that's kind of a popular strategy. we maybe can talk about that some other time. And I talked about it with Chris on the RotoWire podcast yesterday. But anyway, the point, you want pitching. So I'm going to, at least I'm going to get you some lower level names for the next three, but I'm going to use Zach Wheeler as my second.
I like that. And I didn't put him on my list, but Aaron Nola, his teammate, I think is a good value because, man, he hasn't had a winning record since like 2019. But we're all looking at those same underlying stats, but yet somehow Aaron Nola's still undervalued.
He's fine.
It's kind of amazing. My number 2 is Zach Gallen. Kind of blows my mind that he's not going higher just given how he finished. I think it is important to look at, the season-long numbers, of course, but the way he finished was so impressive. I know the team's not very good, but maybe improving.
Yeah, teams are bad for two reasons. Well, whatever. The hitting is bad or the pitching's bad. They've got some decent hitting or fledgling hitting, I will call it. Potentially good hitting. So a good pitcher, their back end of the staff's terrible, so the team isn't going to be very good. But Gallen, I think, is fine. He's going to get his wins because the offense is going to score enough for Zach Gallen to get his wins.
Yeah, I like Gallen a lot this year, but the balanced schedule too, fewer starts against the Dodgers, and maybe he can avoid Coors entirely. That's possible. Who is your number 3, Todd?
Going to move down a bit, kind of in the middle here. Is maybe my third, fourth, or fifth starter, Brady Singer.
Nice.
I'm intrigued. I'm mental block on the new KC pitching coach, but I'm intrigued by their team in general. Singer showed a lot last year, and the quality start aspect of it, I think, helps out a bit in the underdog format.
I like that. My number 3 is a guy a little lower down as well, but still a guy who's very much getting drafted in all leagues. Freddie Peralta. I just think you got to bump him up a little bit and scoop a guy who's this talented, going where he is in Underdog Best Ball. Not playing in the WBC, kind of like we've heard with a lot of guys, but no injury concerns for Peralta heading into camp. So at least for now, a full go, and we'll see how long that lasts. But and I kind of get that you can't backfill if he has another serious injury, but I think the upside is worth chasing here with Freddie Peralta.
Excellent. Now, a little bit of context for those that don't play Underdog, and these guys aren't sleepers. Sorry about the siren. I try to mute them when I can, but I happen to be talking. So there's 12 teams in Underdog and 3 starting pitchers in your active lineup. That's 36. And you're drafting 5, 6, 7, or 8 of them. So there are more, but we're only talking about the top, say, 75 pitchers. So we're not going to get into the 7th or 8th starter in an NFBC league. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the top 5 starters in an NFBC, just to put it in context.
Yeah, it's a little bit shallower.
A little bit, yeah, just so people understand. Mm-hmm. My next guy is similar to Brady Singer, and I kind of already alluded to why I like him, and that's Merrill Kelly. In that, he'll get the wins in Arizona. They leave him in there. We talked about their bullpen earlier. Maybe we didn't talk Arizona's bullpen. No, we didn't. We talked Dodgers, but we could have the same. Who's going to lead? Is Melanson going to lead it in saves, or somebody else? It's a shaky bullpen there in Arizona. Merrill Kelly is like his own 7th inning bridge, and those innings and quality starts matter. So if I'm not looking to take a shot, and I think you may be, I'm going to guess one of your pitchers at the end is kind of a take a shot guy, and then maybe a cookie or two. Then Kelly's kind of the safer guy.
Well, I do like Cookie. I didn't include him on this list, but yeah,
okay, we talked about him last week.
Yeah, we talked about him last week when he had some audio issues.
Oh, that's right.
My next up is Chris Sale. He's always staring at me in the face on Underdog. Too good of a value for me to pass up. I know he's been hurt a ton, but the latest issue was, I believe, a wrist suffered in a bicycle accident. So he's had some time to get away from the arm issues, and I know that Sale is not prime Sale anymore, but he's on track for opening day, and I just think he's going too late. So he's my number 4, and then number 5 for me is Drew Rasmussen, a guy who goes really, I think, too late in Underdog. maybe he's not fully the cookie level flyer that you may have wanted, but if you can, I'd say grab Drew Rasmussen on every darn team you do.
I get him in a lot of them.
Who's number 5 for you, Todd?
Just to mention more of a strategy thing on sale. Again, talking to Chris Baseball last night on the RotoWire podcast, filling in for Jeff. He's an injury prone guy, but when you're drafting your back end pitching, you're looking for those spike weeks, and you're hoping he's healthy during the playoff run of Underdog. So
you got about 30 seconds here, though, on this segment.
All right, 30 seconds.
You want to start last?
Trevor Rogers, Miami. I just don't.
Nice.
I believe at the end, taking the shot that he comes back.
I like that. So to recap our best pitcher values in Underdog Best Ball drafts, mine: Luis Castillo, Zach Gallen, Freddie Peralta, Chris Sale, Drew Rasmussen. Todd's 5: Kevin Gausman, Zach Wheeler, Brady Singer, Merrill Kelly, Trevor Rogers. I appreciate your deep cuts, and sorry to cut you off. They just, they tell us to keep things nice and tight with the Underdog Best Ball segment. So we will cap that off and transition back to our regularly scheduled programming at this time. Todd, I heard Kodai Senga's first bullpen session with the Mets was brutal. I forget the reporter. I wish I could give them proper credit, but they basically said it was just a disastrous first bullpen for Kodai Senga, and that they're optimistic that he can adjust better to the ball. I've heard that the ball is a little slick in spring training, and also the heightened mound compared to what he's used to throwing. Is he somebody you're going to draft? For me, there's too much unknown here for me to be interested in Kodai Senga.
There is a little bit of drafting on the come with Senga. I like the. Yes, there's going to be someone in the. I'm not down, but there's going to be someone in each room, and it doesn't have to be Tim McLeod every time. Hi, Tim. There's someone in each room that's going to be higher on Senga than I'm willing to go.
Yeah, I don't know how he's going to translate. It really, really scares me off. Noah Syndergaard showing improved velocity in camp. Maybe he's a dark horse to get some saves there in Los Angeles. Looks like they're probably going to need him to start, right? But man, Syndergaard in the bullpen could give him a new lease on life.
Yeah, you have to wonder, it's not so, sometimes the getting up and sitting down, getting hot, getting cold aspect of being a reliever is worse to the arm than every fifth day, going goofy. So I don't know. I mean, it's not a foregone conclusion. John Smoltz did it. There's some guys that, then Smoltz went back to starting. It has helped some, and Jordan Romano looks like it could be an example. It worked for Isringhausen, but it doesn't work for everybody.
Michael Wacha finally found a landing spot. Kind of waiting on him. I think he was pretty much viewed as the top ranking starter on the board.
I think so.
Got a 3-year deal with San Diego. I'm sorry, it's a 1-year deal, but a 3-year player option.
Right.
Kind of a weird structure, but it has a club option too. Kind of interesting. He projects to be firmly in that rotation. What do you think about Wacha and his draft stock moving forward?
I think he's in that streaming range. He kind of a bit lucky under the hood last year. If nothing else, it really does solidify the Padres' intent to go with a 6-man rotation, which is kind of a bummer if you've got a Musgrove or a Darvish or even a Blake Snell. You kind of have to cap. You're probably going to do Darvish to 30 anyway, but maybe you were hoping for 32 starts out of Musgrove. I don't know, but I do think you have to back off. And is that really going to matter in a draft? Because again, do you want to take a lesser starter than Joe Musgrove that you project for 32? I know we're talking about Wacha. I'll get back to Wacha, but do you want to take a lesser starter than Musgrove at 32 starts versus a better starter, because you can lose 2 starts anyway? But the point being, it is going to adjust how we think about it. I like Wacha now as a streamer. I'm not drafting him, maybe NL only, but to me he is in that streaming range. But you got to calm yourself from last year's production with the Red Sox. Doesn't miss enough bats to maintain that level of surface stats. Although the park will help. The park change will help.
I'm glad you mentioned that because we talked earlier in the show about the Angels going away from the 6-man rotation back to the more traditional 5-man. But I feel like it's not really been talked about a lot that the Padres are going to 6, and maybe Seth Lugo as the 6. They also signed what? They signed Cole Hamels, didn't they?
Yeah, the one to look at.
Deal?
Yeah, exactly. They just recently signed him after an audition.
Mm-hmm.
The guy to look at or keep in mind is Wilmer Font. Well, came over from I don't remember if it was from Korea or Japan, but he came from overseas where he pitched pretty well. So, assuming Nick Martinez stays in the rotation, Wilmer Font is somebody. All right, they have a Julio Teheran, who knows. Brent Honeywell,
but I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah, well, you haven't, with Lisk gone, we haven't had to talk about Teheran for a while. But so the point, I think the bigger point being, there's a lot of names here to take up that 5th and 6th spot. Ryan Weathers, although he may just be down in the bullpen. So they definitely have the inventory to go down that 5-starter 6-man swingman role. I don't think if there's an off day, I don't see going 7 days and before Musgrove and Darvish pitch. I think you bench your 6th starter at that point. But Jay Groom even from the Red Sox, I think towards the end of the season could get a look in the rotation. So
just kind of seems a little strange to me that they would be so adamant about 6 without 6 guys. I mean, Waka, Martinez, Lugo. I mean, to be so adamant about going 6 seems
unless it's just to protect. I mean, do you say, well, we're going to be in the playoffs and we want Darvish and Musgrove to be fresh? Excuse me. I don't think you can say that. You cannot go into the season with that mindset, even though that's probably the case.
Well, real quick, one last word, if you'll bear with me, then we'll wrap things up on today's show with more fantasy baseball talk. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Coming from another service, Fantrax makes it super easy. That's what I always hear from people is, they're sick of their old commish service and they're making the jump, and the transition is super easy. Fantrax can import any of your current leagues and customize if needed. They're always there, just an email away if you have something that you need changed for your league. Fantrax offers the most in-depth player pool as well, including minor league players. Do you need a customizable commissioner service for your fantasy league? Fantrax offers more customization than any other service. Waivers, categories, scoring system, schedule. Fantrax offers custom solutions for all that and more, and it's all free. Sign up for free today and be entered to win an official MLB signed jersey from my guy, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Love me some Vladdy. Simply go to fantrax.com/RotoWire and sign up today. That's fantrax.com/RotoWire. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. We, of course, appreciate their sponsorship of the program, along with Underdogs. And Todd, just a few more things I wanted to run by you. At this point in the season, we're hearing a lot of best shape of your life stories. Of course, some noise that over at RotoWire with our news portion, we do a great job. The crew, everybody does a great job of kind of, making sense of all this. But, it's still kind of hard to know what to filter out, what to put stock into, what not to. I'm kind of wanting to gauge your thoughts on this note. Julio Rodriguez could run more this season. We know there are bigger bases. Scott Service was the person who said that Rodriguez could run even more. Is this noise, or is this something that you actually think could be meaningful, this note on Julio Rodriguez?
It's something I assumed. It's something I anticipated, to be honest with you. I don't think he's a top 5 overall pick if he's not going to run. So
run more.
Run more.
Yeah.
Injuries over the second half, just some stuff. He could lead the league. I think spoiler alert, when I talk with Eric Haltman tomorrow on Sirius XM MLB Network Radio, I'm going to predict not predict. I'm going to say Jake McCarthy could lead the league in steals. Rodriguez could lead the AL, and I don't think I projected him to, but to me it was more of a cool. I kind of assumed Rodriguez would run more when Service says so. I'm not taking a victory lap, if you will, but
it checks out with your expectations.
I had him for 24. So, maybe I raise him to 28 now. I don't know. But, so I think it's a good sign. And he's young. It's still part of his game. I don't think you slow a Rodriguez down later in his career. I do not think you harness a player of that caliber at his age 23 or 4 season. When you get to 26 or 7 and maybe you're a little thicker just because that's what happens, maybe then you slow him down. But not now.
Well, we've talked in recent weeks, shifting gears just a little bit, about Masataka Yoshida being a big riser. We mentioned earlier in the show that he's going to be batting leadoff for Boston. Another guy who's been steadily rising and could rise to kind of unprecedented heights for a 19-year-old come late drafts, Andrew Painter. He's going to turn 20 on April 10th. So a 19-year-old with only 28 in the third innings above high A under his belt. Not a lot of upper-level minor league experience, but he's added a cutter to his pitch mix. That was a note we had yesterday, and one of the top prospects in the league. I just, on Twitter, try to keep my ear to the ground. It just seems like everybody's pumping up Andrew Painter. And I get it, he's a good prospect, but do you actually expect Andrew Painter at 19 years old to be on that opening day roster? For the Phillies, by the way.
I mean, if he is, I don't know that I want him to be. Because I'd rather hear that we're going to start him out on the minors and, he hasn't had any AAA experience, temper his innings to AAA and then bring him up. And then, for the rest of the season or whatever, he had 78 innings as a 19-year-old over 3 levels. What can you realistically expect? And forget Verducci effect, all that stuff. But what can you realistically expect for a 20-year-old guy to throw at the major league level when you threw 78 the previous season? And how do you monitor that from opening day?
Mm-hmm.
So that's my bigger concern, if you will. Then how does that get managed?
Because they're gonna either way, even if they kind of not fully turn them loose, but even if they're kind of generous with their workload for him, I mean, we're talking 120 innings max, maybe.
Yeah, and if you want, Philly's going to knock on wood, knock on wood. I'm not a Philly fan, but if to make another playoff run, that's their desire. And the oddity about it is they've got 5 pretty strong starters. Relative, I'm not that Bailey Falter's a great pitcher, but he's not a bad fifth. And Ranger Suarez is a pretty good fourth. You know what I mean? Relative to their rotation spot, they got some good pitchers. So I think it's a little bit odd. You're not going to go to 6-man and knock down Nola and Wheeler's starts.
Mm-hmm.
They can get 33. That's how goofy they are. So but will Walker get hurt? Will Falter, come through in that 5th spot? They don't have a lot of depth, the Phillies anyway. So I don't know. I'm not taking that plunge as far as the hype, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As a fan, I'm gonna watch him pitch for sure. But I don't know. I don't think isn't Mick Abel another top prospect? No, he's not ready, but another top pitching prospect for them.
I had it in my head that he wasn't like a top prospect, but maybe you're right. Yeah, James has him right behind Painter in the organizational ranks. So
yeah, so he didn't pitch quite as much last year, and he did. At the low A level, he did have 85 innings. Not nearly the prospect, but I mean that speaks a little bit towards the Phillies farm system at this point. made some moves to strengthen the team as good as it is. So yeah, I'm gonna let Joe Cheesesteak take Painter over where I'm gonna take him.
I like that. Joe Cheesesteak. That's great. That should be a wrestling name, perhaps. Yeah, I think
Robert.
I was kind of interested just given, how talented he is, but I think even already he's probably cost prohibitive. Like even right now he's getting to the point where okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to spend a top 200 pick on him, and no, I don't want to do that. So and then assuming the price just continues up from here, it's going to be prohibitive for me. I think on Andrew Painter,
for sure.
At least this year. We'll see if he's able to. If he has a great year, I'd love to get in next year, but I think this year is a wait and see type of year for me on Andrew Painter. Mitch White, by the way, we learned the other day that he is recovering from a right shoulder impingement. Says he's currently healthy. Can't believe he's dating Margot Robbie. I don't know if that's actually true or not. But
No, that was part of the joke. There was,
okay.
She's married or she's dating.
Okay.
It's like I'm only saying this because one of my better tweets out there is I tweeted it's like little personal news. I am not dating Margot Robbie. It was just became a meme.
Yeah, I know that it kind of became a meme after, but I thought, I was confused. And
to tell you my pop culture itch stuff, I had to Google to find out who she was, and
what?
it's just I don't watch movies, and I was not familiar. So
I really liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That was pretty good. But yeah, okay, I was good to know that was just a meme and that I'm not going crazy.
well, if he was, more power to him.
Might have to bump him up my rankings. But no, the reason I mentioned him is because the other guy in that mix for the number 5 spot is Yusei Kikuchi. Oh, I hate to even ask, but you're in AL labor in a few weeks. Are you gonna consider Kikuchi for a buck or two?
Was it on Twitter or did we have a note that he's making some adjustments to his?
Yeah, and he's growing out a beard. He's got.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Going the Hollywood Hogan heel route.
Encouraging. Do we have Rob Silver writing our notes now?
Nope.
Encouraging adjustments to his delivery. Was he throwing strikes? Is that the deal? I don't know.
That would be a step forward.
Now, to answer your question about labor, this is very, context specific. No, because as you know, it's mostly old school, and you can't bench Kikuchi, for a rough start. Oh no, he's got the Yankees and Red Sox this week. I'm going to reserve him. You can't do that in labor. You can release him, but you cannot reserve him. So to me, he's too risky for that format. Well
put. And then finally, the last thing I had here was Fernando Tatis says that surgically repaired left shoulder feels 100%. I quote, "It's just locked in. I feel like it's not going to come out anymore, and it feels really secure. It just feels right." So I'd expect to, even though we haven't seen him in a long time on a major league field, I expect him to creep up into that turn in a 15-team league. Do you think that's about right?
Well, he's still going to miss 19 games.
Yeah.
So,
but still.
My latest Z-Files talks about how to make that adjustment. It can feel 100%, but it's still surgically repaired. The strength may not be there. We don't know. I'm not saying it's not, but I think it's not an automatic that he's returning to form. Whether the strength can get built up or et cetera, just because it feels good doesn't mean it's the same point that it was pre-injury.
Yeah, really well put, because coming back and playing baseball at the level that's required for Major League Baseball, it's just a whole different beast.
This is a question that Stefania Bell, Eric Stotts, what I'm saying, air quote, makes sense, but I didn't even say it a holiday in. The medical people will know the answer to what I just kind of questioned. So I'm sure we'll hear the answer before, now that this is out, we'll hear the answer before too long.
And then I'm just seeing this now, actually. Kendall Graveman open to any bullpen role. So he's just at least leaving it open for maybe somebody else to grab some saves there on the south side.
Well, I mean, it was Graveman himself that said that. He was probably asked. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you prefer to hear? I'd love to close. I think I can do the job, but if Skip wants me to, set up, I'll do it for the team. I'd rather hear that, but I'm not. To me, he's still the leader in the clubhouse for saves. But the big question mark is when will if Hendricks will come back. So
yeah, still no timetable for Hendricks.
Right, and they reiterated that there won't be, and it's not because they're being covert. They just won't know. They have to test out, things have to play out, and it just happens to be around opening day when the next set of results will be available. Who else is we've got Ronaldo Lopez. We've got
Ronaldo Kelly. Lopez is the name I've been hearing a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean Aaron Bummer is always mentioned, but I think he's more of the the closer. His pitch 2 days in a row. We need a third, so we'll bump Bummer up. Yeah, it's Lopez to me anyway. It's not going to be Joe Kelly, right? It's going to be Lopez that it would be the one that would potentially challenge Graveman. But I am taking Graveman in a lot. Again, I'm not doing that many leagues. I've taken Graveman a couple of times, hoping he's a regular closer for whatever it is, half the season, and I'll figure out who's going to be my guy the second half of the season. We'll see.
Yeah. Ronaldo Lopez, this transition to the bullpen was probably well overdue, but he had quite a bit of success last year.
Yep.
2.76 ERA, 0.95 WHIP. Yeah, I mean, he averaged less than a strikeout per inning, but pretty darn good numbers. That transition looks to have given him a new lease on life at the big league level. Anything else on your mind today, Todd?
I alluded to it a couple times. Full disclosure, as you folks know, Underdog is a sponsor, but I talked an entire hour of Underdog with at Baseball B3ISBOL Chris, and that was a fun podcast. Looking forward. Are you doing anything for Justin Mason's Potapalooza?
I need to reach out to Justin. I don't think so, but just got a lot going on. But I know that's for a good cause.
Yeah, so it's not this weekend; it's next weekend. Check that out. And looking forward to starting to do some of the expert. I'm gonna go with that word. Tout Wars Draft and Hold starts next Tuesday. Check out Twitter. The lineup's been posted. I think the labor draft is the 21st. The mixed labor online, and then the next Tout Wars draft is going to be online on February 28th. So it's the season, folks. So they're fun, and I'm much looking forward to that. I don't know about you, but I'm at that point now where we're doing our jobs, we're doing the news, we're doing this, but man, I'm ready for the in-season routine.
Yeah, the grind is long, but there's something beautiful about it too. I look forward to it. And I look forward to doing TGFBI and Tout Wars, and it should be a fun next few months as we gear up for the start of the baseball season. Hope you will stick with us here. We have these audio issues seemingly ironed out, so I hope you'll catch us next Friday, Todd and I, and 5 days a week here on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We are sponsored by Fantrax and Underdog Fantasy. We appreciate them. We appreciate you for all taking time to listen to us. Clay Link, Todd Zola, back next Friday on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast.